So, Mariko, I really liked your video on Tuesday talking about feminist burnout and how it can often feel sort of overwhelming and hard to feel like you're making a difference, and also just sort of the feeling of there being so much and just wishing that you didn't care, because caring can be really, really exhausting. And I think that that's an important thing to discuss because it is a real problem with any activist cause, I think, because any cause that's this big, any problem that's this big, can seem sort of insurmountable, and if it's something that you're really passionate about and really care about fighting about, it can get really overwhelming and really exhausting. And I also definitely face feminist burnout, maybe in slightly different ways than Reiko was talking about experiencing it. So I think the first way that I want to talk about that I experience feminist burnout is feeling like my actions are futile, not in that they're too small, but in that basically, like, when you're trying to talk to someone who is being oppressive, is being sexist, um, is being oppressive in any way, and you're trying to talk to them and tell them why those actions are problematic, and trying to convince them to not do those things and to listen to your cause, whatever. Sometimes it does work. There are some people who just really do need to have their eyes opened and will accept that, and I think most of us started out that way. And we're lucky enough to have people talk to us, or we're able to read things and uh, realized that these things that we didn't see were big problems, and learned how to not be problematic that way. But then there are some people who just don't want to learn, and I think that's where a lot of my feminist burnout comes from. Sometimes I just have to avoid the comments on these videos or on anything like that, because there are these people, no matter what you say, no matter how foolproof your arguments are, no matter how persuasive you think you're being, there are always going to be people who don't agree with you and who think you're wrong and who just really resolutely want to stick to their misogynistic ways, their racist ways, their transphobic ways, whatever, and just will refuse to hear the other side. And I think that's where a lot of my feminist burnout comes from, because it's really hard when you care about something and you are facing these people who are against everything that you believe in. I think the only way, and Marika was talking about picking your battles a bit, and this is a similar thing, I think the only way to avoid that is to really pick your battles, to realize that there are some people that you will be able to make an impact on, and that there are some people who you probably won't. And to not waste too much of your effort and too much of your mental energies, whatever, on trying to convince the people who just really don't want to change. And it's sad in a way to feel like you're giving up, but it's just self-preservation, because you can't change everybody, so there's no point in having like 100 message long conversation with some misogynist who's just going to counter everything you say, no matter how reasonable it is, because you're not getting anywhere. Even though I think as feminists we often feel like we have a duty to stand up when somebody is saying something problematic. That's really real, but I think it's also important to know when to step back, and to know when you're just really not going to be doing anything but frustrating yourself by continuing a conversation. So Marika was talking about just sort of like feeling like the problem is so big and how could you be having an impact. Like, we are here every week making videos on a YouTube channel with like 100 some subscribers. Sometimes it feels like there's no way that that could be making any sort of an impact, and as much as you care, you feel really impotent and like you're not doing anything. And I can totally relate to that too, and I think most people can, especially people who are activists on a smaller scale, like us. And so what I like to think about in times like this is a story that I really like that is really cheesy. I tell this to kids at camp. I'm cheesy, get over it. Okay, so the story goes like this. There was a woman walking down a beach one day, and the beach was covered in starfish. like washed up on the shore. It was low tide. And so she's walking along, and in the distance she sees like a small figure that is walking towards her, and every once in a while like bending down and picking something up and throwing it into the ocean. And so she's confused at what this is, but anyway, she keeps walking, and as she gets closer she sees that it's a little girl who is bending down and picking up starfish and throwing them into the ocean. And so when she gets closer to the little girl, she asks her, she's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And the little girl says, well, these starfish got washed up on the beach, and if I don't put them back in the ocean, they're going to dry out and they're going to die, so I'm saving the starfish. And so the woman just sort of laughed at her, and she's like, there are thousands of starfish on this beach. How do you think that you are going to make any sort of a difference? And so the little girl just looks at the woman, and she bends down and she picks up another starfish and she throws it into the ocean, and she says, I think it made a difference to that one. And well, I really like that story. But I think that's something that's important to remember, because maybe it feels like you're not making any sort of an impact on a global level or anything, but if you keep standing up for what you believe in, and if you keep trying to spread that around, you're going to impact at least one person. There's going to be somebody who heard what you said and either changed their mind and maybe stopped doing something that they had been doing that was oppressive, or somebody who, because of hearing what you said, realized that they weren't alone and they didn't need to be silent. And I think that that is something that's really important to remember in the face of feminist burnout, is that maybe you're not making any sort of an impact that's going to be visible on like a national or global scale, but at the end, I think what activism is people. And if you work hard enough, if you're passionate enough, you're going to impact people. And if you can change one person's life for the better, no matter how small of a way, like, you've still done something. And so that's what I try and remember to sort of try and fight the feminist burnout. Anyways, thanks for watching. Rico, I'll see you, I think, next week. The schedule from now on out might be a little bit strange because I go to camp next week. We'll let you guys know. Anyways, I'll see you later.